with live visuals of St. Peter's Square, the large plaza located directly in front of St. Peter's Basilica, which is centre in the Vatican, which is obviously where the Pope was based in the city of Rome. Pope Francis's passing is obviously a moment for profound sorrow for the Catholic Church worldwide. We are expecting reactions from world leaders, as Joshua was saying previously. Yesterday, he was visited by J.D. Vance, also a devout Catholic. We know that there are many leaders whose Pope Francis's passing will send their condolences without doubt. Pope Francis was known for his modern outlook and progressive outlook on certain societal issues that were often left unspoken about by the Catholic Church. These included gender issues, racial issues. He was, yes, as I said, he was very outspoken about these types of modern political issues, which can be seen as seeing this old institution of the Vatican catching up with modern times. Pope Francis had his eyes open to that. This period, known as the Sade Vacante, or the empty seat, is the time that is opening now. It signifies the time between the death of the Pope and the election of his successor, and we will continue to bring the updates to you as soon as we can in regards to that. During this time, the College of Cardinals will convene in the conclave to elect this new Bishop of Rome. This is obviously a huge institution, one of the biggest religious institutions in the world, the centre of Catholicism that is currently in the Vatican. As we've said previously, Pope Francis was the leader of Catholics, over 1 billion Catholics worldwide, spanning not just Europe, America, all 7 continents. Huge following in South America as well, Pope Francis had. We saw prayers all around the continent while Pope Francis was in his hospital, where he remained with double pneumonia, but then was shortly released after that, still having breathing difficulties, but had been told that rest was prescribed to him. But once again, he was taken out of Rome's Gemelli Hospital within the past month and was released in a wheelchair, making minimal public appearances. He made an initial public appearance when he first left the hospital but didn't speak. We saw him make another public appearance yesterday on Easter Sunday, obviously a very, very important time for not just Catholics but Christians around the world, and that's when he made a public appearance as well at that very important time. And once again, sadly, it's happened on this religious festival, Easter Monday, where Pope Francis has sadly passed away at 7:35 a.m. this morning in the Vatican City, as announced by, as we said before, the Cardinal Kevin Ferrell, the Vatican's camerlengo. Cardinal Ferrell paid his tribute to Pope Francis, referring to him as the Bishop of Rome and emphasizing that his entire life was devoted to the service of God and the Catholic Church. His death obviously marks the end of his papacy, where he died at 88 years old, and initiates the procedures for the election of a new pope, which we will be assured to see within the next few weeks. As you can see, the live photos there of people gathering at St. Peter's Square, which is at the centre of Vatican City in Rome. Joshua, we are with you once again. Joshua Barnes, NewsX World and correspondent. Joshua, what updates can you give us?
Yes, Thomas, so we have had some early reactions in from world leaders, also a monarch in the form of King Charles III, of course, the British monarch. He has expressed deep sadness at the Pope's passing, adding he has fond memories of a visit with the Pope in the Vatican in 2009. We've also had comments from North America. A California Democrat, Nancy Pelosi, who is a senior figure in American politics. She has said, "Spiritually, I am always moved by Pope Benedict's powerful encyclical, God is Love," where he quotes St. Augustine, highlighting our moral duties as public servants to fight for justice. We will, of course, be getting a lot more of these responses. The Pope, of course, a pivotal character as the head of the Church, the head of the Catholic Church, which touches areas across the world, not just in the West, but of course the Catholic religion is an extremely large religion felt across continents all over the globe. So there will be mourning, there will be thoughts and prayers going out from Catholics across the world. Now it's interesting, of course, Pope Francis is somebody who advocated for humanitarian issues, advocated for migrants specifically in the United States as well. During his end of life, during his final months, he spoke about the migrant situation in the United States. He was very vocal on ongoing wars, which US politics has discussed and been a part of over recent months. His message was always clear: people have to come first. The humanitarian situation has to come first. The message he continued until his last moments, as we know, coming this morning at 7:35 a.m. Pope Francis dying at the age of 88. Of course, the visuals we're seeing of Basilica Square, St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. The situation, of course, is a somber one. People across the world mourning. Depending on time zones, people will be waking up to this news potentially, and the thoughts and prayers of many will be with Pope Francis.
Yes, Josh, thank you very much. If you've just joined us, we are covering the recent death of Pope Francis, who has just died at the age of 88, the head of the Catholic Church, from a statement from the Vatican. He died at his residence in Vatican's Casa Santa Marta, the Vatican News Service has said. The statement released by Cardinal Ferrell says that his entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his church. His death comes on Easter Monday, a day after he appeared in St. Peter's Square to wish Happy Easter to thousands of worshippers. This is St. Peter's Square. We are showing you live images of, as you can see, the people have started gathering just an hour, less than an hour since that statement from the Vatican came. As Josh said previously, he was known. The Pope was known for his advocates for rights of migrants and refugees, emphasising moral responsibility of nations when it came to welcome and protect the vulnerable. So, what happens when a new Pope dies, which is obviously a process which is now going to start? This papal funeral has traditionally been an elaborate affair, but Pope Francis recently approved plans to make the entire procedure less complex. We know that there were obviously health scares before his death. He had a stint in Rome's hospital before this, so Pope Francis has put in the precautions and made the necessary plans. We even know about his coffin that he wanted. Previous pontiffs were buried in three nested coffins, made of cypress, lead and oak. Pope Francis, however, has opted for a simple wooden coffin lined with zinc. He's also scrapped through the tradition. These were plans he made before his death of placing the Pope's body on a raised platform in St. Peter's Basilica for a public viewing. This public viewing is a well-known tradition for certain political leaders. I mean, certain church leaders and political leaders in the Catholic faith, where people can pay their respects in a public mourning. Pope Francis has instead opted out of this. Instead, mourners will be invited to pay their respects while his body remains inside the coffin with the lid removed. Francis will also be the first pope in more than a century to be buried outside of the Vatican. He will be instead laid in rest at the Basilica of St. Mary Major, one of 4 papal basilicas inside Rome. This is obviously not in the Vatican. Once again, if you're just joining us, there we have world leaders paying tribute, with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof describing him as a role model for Catholics and non-Catholics alike. You can obviously see, even since we've been on air, all the people that are gathering in front of St. Peter's Square. We have some breaking news coming in now. A papal funeral has long been a grand and ceremonial event, but under new plans approved by Pope Francis, that tradition is set to change. The Pope has requested a far simpler farewell. Unlike his predecessors, who were buried in 3 nested coffins, cypress, lead and oak, Francis has chosen a plain wooden casket lined with zinc. He's also doing away with the traditional public display of the Pope's body on a raised platform known as a catafalque inside St. Peter's Basilica. Instead, mourners will be invited to pay their respects as his body lies inside the coffin without being formally displayed in a final break from custom. Francis will be the first pontiff in more than 100 years to be buried outside the Catholic hub, which is the Vatican. His final resting place, the Basilica of the St. Mary Major, one of Rome's 4 major papal basilicas. If you join us, if you're recently joining us, we are reporting on the death of Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, who's died at the age of 88 years old. World leaders are pouring in. We have a new tribute. French President Emmanuel Macron tuning into the conversation, calling him a man, describing Pope Francis as a man of humility. That comes along with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof calling him a role model for Catholics and non-Catholics alike. The death comes after Pope Francis' death. Obviously, comes fewer than 24 hours after he made a public appearance at the same square at St. Peter's Square for Easter Sunday, where he came out in a wheelchair from the balcony of St. Peter's to cheering crowds, where he said, "Dear brothers and dear sisters, happy Easter" to the crowds, where he received cheers after this. And his traditional Easter blessing address was read by an aide while he sat and watched as he graced crowds with his presence. Francis's papacy heralded many fists, while he never stopped introducing reforms to the Catholic Church, where he obviously remained popular among traditionalists of Catholicism. He was the first pope from the Americas or the Southern Hemisphere, not since Syrian-born Gregory III died in 701 AD. there had been a non-European bishop of Pope. Joshua Barnes, correspondent and anchor for NewsX World, is joining us once again. Joshua, what updates have you got for us?
Yes, Tom. So, of course, the world is reacting. Pictures with world leaders are being posted on social media. We will, of course, get those as soon as we can to you. As you mentioned there, you brought up some of the world leaders who have already spoken on this matter. Of course, King Charles has spoken, senior American politicians as well, European politicians. We will bring you all of those updates as we get them. I want to touch on what you mentioned just a second ago, and Pope Francis, of course, becoming the first Pope from the Southern Hemisphere and the first non-European Pope for over 1,000 years, 1,300 years to be precise. A bit of information about him. He was born in Buenos Aires as Jorge Mario Bergoglio, and he is the son of Italian immigrants. He, of course, then was appointed Pope in 2013, but his life being spent with the Catholic Church, information will come through, and we will continue, of course, to provide you that as we get it. But I just want to bring us back to his health and his difficulties that he's faced in the final days and weeks of his life. Of course, admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on the 14th of February, battling a bout of bronchitis. His situation worsened while he was in hospital. He was then being treated for pneumonia. He spent a 38-day period in hospitals, spending time in the intensive care units in the Gemelli Hospital, also spending time outside with his condition improving to the point where he was able to return to the Vatican and leave hospital after that stay in hospital for more than a month. He returned to minor services. Of course, his last public appearance was in the Easter Sunday service that was held in the Vatican yesterday, a very important time for the Catholic Church. He also met with US Vice President J.D. Vance very briefly until he passed away this morning at 7:35. The situation is one that is evolving. We are getting more information. As that comes through, we will, of course, bring that to you. I just want to bring up the statement from the Vatican that we had in full to provide you with some context. A short while ago, this is what we had from Cardinal Ferrell, who was announcing the sorrow of his death. Dearest brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his Church. He taught us to live with the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage, and universal love, especially in favour of the poorest and the most marginalised. With immense gratitude for his example, as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the one and triune God.
Joshua, thank you very much. You are staying with us. If you've just joined us, we are covering the death of Pope Francis. As you can see, visuals are there from the St. Peter's Square in the centre of the Vatican, where people are gathering, mourning from the death of the 88-year-old pontiff, who died at 7:35 this morning. The head of the Catholic Church, over 1 billion Catholics worldwide, he was the head of that church. We now move on to some more breaking news. In his final post on X, the Pope expressed a heartfelt message of unity and hope, writing, "I would like us to renew our hope that is possible," speaking from the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Resurrection, where this year both Catholics and Orthodox are celebrating Easter on the same day. He prayed that the light of peace would shine across the Holy Land and the world. Yesterday we obviously saw J.D. Vance meet with Pope Francis during his visit in Rome. However, the Pope is not yet necessarily politically aligned. He has met with many world leaders, significant world leaders, from Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin to Barack Obama, a plethora of American presidents. He is seen he met with Narendra Modi, Indian Prime Minister, in 2021, and met with Turkish leader Tayyip Erdogan last year in 2024. We now have some more tributes coming in from world leaders. European Parliament President has said that in a statement that has described him as his contagious smile captured millions of people's hearts across the globe. We have a message from Israeli President Isaac Herzog, who hails his boundless compassion for people. We have another statement from Swiss President Karin Keller-Sutter, who says that Pope Francis was a great spiritual leader and a tireless advocate for peace. We also have a message from Scottish First Minister John Swinney, the leader of the Scottish National Party, who describes him as a voice for peace, tolerance and reconciliation. We can expect further tributes to come in throughout the next coming hours. You can see we now